Millionaire CEO watches twins sell necklace to save their mother. Their lives changed completely. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the journey. The autumn wind swept through Central Park, carrying crimson leaves past William Reynolds as he strode purposefully along the winding path. At 42, William had built Reynolds Enterprises into a global tech empire, his name synonymous with innovation and ruthless business acumen. Yet success had left him hollow, his existence meticulously ordered but devoid of genuine connection. "Please, sir, would you like to buy our necklace?" William nearly walked past the small voice, but something in its desperate sincerity made him pause. Two identical girls with auburn hair and emerald eyes looked up at him, their faces pinched with anxiety. One held out a delicate silver necklace, with a heart-shaped pendant. "We're selling it," the girl continued, her voice trembling slightly. "It's really special." William stared at the necklace, his world suddenly tilting on its axis. The unique filigree pattern, the small inscription on the back. It was identical to the one he had given Melissa on their first anniversary. The necklace he believed had been buried with her after the accident that claimed her and their twin daughters 5 years ago. "How much?" William heard himself ask, his voice unexpectedly hoarse. The twins exchanged glances. "Whatever you can pay," the one holding the necklace answered. "We just need it for our mom, she's really sick." Without fully understanding why, William reached for his wallet and removed several large bills. "Will this help?" he asked, extending the money. The girl's eyes widened at the amount, far more than they'd hoped for. Abigail carefully placed the necklace in William's palm, her small fingers lingering for a moment before reluctantly pulling away. "Thank you, sir," Emily said, her voice trembling with relief. "This will help our mom a lot." William pocketed the necklace, watching as the twins gripped the money tightly and hurried away. He should have continued his walk, returned to his meetings, and forgotten this brief interaction. Instead, he found himself watching the girls' retreating figures, those identical heads bent together in urgent conversation. William turned to his driver, who had followed at a discreet distance. "Follow them," he said quietly, surprising himself with the command. "I want to see where they live." As his car moved slowly behind the hurrying twins, William stared at the silver necklace, now resting in his hand. It had been years since anything had disrupted his carefully ordered existence. Years since he had felt this pull, this need to understand. William Reynolds didn't believe in fate or coincidence, but as he watched those twin girls through the tinted window, he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, something that would change everything. William's car followed the twins to a dilapidated apartment building in one of the city's forgotten neighborhoods. The contrast between his sleek vehicle and the crumbling surroundings couldn't have been starker. As the girls disappeared inside, William sat motionless, the silver necklace still in his hand. "Wait here," he told his driver, stepping out before he could reconsider. The building's stairwell smelled of mildew and despair. William climbed 4 flights, following the sound of excited children's voices until he reached a door with peeling paint. He hesitated, then knocked firmly. The door opened slightly, revealing one twin's suspicious face. "It's the man from the park," she called over her shoulder, eyes wide with confusion. The door opened wider. Both girls stood there, uncertainty written across their identical faces. Behind them, William glimpsed a small, sparse apartment and the outline of a woman lying on a mattress. "Can I come in?" William asked, his usual commanding tone softened. After a moment's hesitation, the girls stepped aside. Inside, the apartment was clean despite its poverty. What struck William most was what was missing. No excess, no comforts, just bare necessities. "My mom's sleeping," one twin whispered. "Abigail," William thought, though he wasn't certain. "Jennifer." Miller lay on a thin mattress, her breathing labored, skin ashen against worn sheets. Even in illness, her resemblance to Melissa was unmistakable. The same delicate features, though her once vibrant face was now hollow with suffering. "How long has she been like this?" William asked quietly. "Weeks," Emily answered, her small shoulders sagging. "She gets worse every day. William knelt beside the mattress, gently touching Jennifer's arm. Her skin burned with fever. "She needs a hospital," he said decisively. "Don't have money," Abigail replied, her voice small. "That's why we were selling our necklace." William looked at the silver pendant still in his pocket, then at the desperate faces of the twins. Something inside him, something he thought long buried, stirred to life. "I'll take care of it," he said firmly. The girls exchanged glances. "How will we ever pay you back?" Emily asked, clutching the money they'd earned. William's expression softened unexpectedly. "You already sold me your necklace, remember? Now it's my turn to help." Without waiting for their response, William lifted Jennifer gently in his arms. She mumbled something incoherent, too weak to resist. The twins followed anxiously as William carried their mother down the stairs and into his waiting car. "Where are we going?" Abigail asked, holding her mother's limp hand. "To people who can help her," William answered, already dialing his phone as the car pulled away. William found himself wondering what had possessed him to get involved. For years, he'd built walls around himself, focused solely on his empire, avoiding anything that might reawaken the pain he'd buried so deeply. Yet something about these twins and their desperate situation had breached those defenses. Looking at their worried faces in the back seat, William understood with startling clarity that his carefully isolated life had just become irrevocably entangled with theirs. The emergency room door slid open as William carried Jennifer inside, the twins trailing anxiously behind. His commanding presence cut through the usual waiting procedures, and within minutes doctors were examining Jennifer, while nurses guided the concerned girls to nearby chairs. "Severe dehydration, probable kidney failure," a doctor murmured, checking Jennifer's vitals. "How long has she been like this?" "They say weeks," William replied, watching as the medical team worked with efficient urgency. "Will she recover?" The doctor's expression remained professionally neutral. "She needs immediate treatment. Are you family?" William hesitated only briefly. "Yes," he answered firmly, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Tests confirmed. The doctor's initial assessment: severe kidney disease requiring immediate dialysis. William authorized all necessary treatments without hesitation, signing forms and providing his insurance information as if he'd been caring for Jennifer his entire life. Hours later, William found himself sitting between the exhausted twins in a quiet hospital corridor. The girls leaned against him, fighting sleep but losing the battle. Neither had left their mother's side until the doctors had insisted they step out during a procedure. "Is Mom going to die?" Abigail whispered, her small voice cracking. William looked down at the girl, seeing fear in those green eyes that seemed far too wise for their years. "No," he said with certainty. "She's getting the best care possible now." "But what happens after?" Emily asked, equally concerned. "We can't stay at the hospital forever." The question hung in the air. William had been so focused on getting Jennifer treatment that he hadn't considered what would come next. The thought of sending these children back to that barren apartment while their mother recovered was unthinkable. "You'll come stay with me," William heard himself say, the words forming before he'd fully considered them. "Just until your mother is better." The twins exchanged doubtful glances. "Your house must be really big," Abigail said after a moment, trying to imagine it. "It is," William confirmed, feeling strangely self-conscious about his wealth for the first time in years. "Plenty of room for both of you." When Jennifer was finally stabilized and sleeping, a nurse approached with paperwork and questions about childcare arrangements. William smoothly took charge, explaining that the girls would be staying with him. His confident tone left no room for argument or suspicion. As they prepared to leave, William watched the twins say goodbye to their unconscious mother, each placing a gentle kiss on her forehead with a tenderness that tightened his chest. These children, who had every reason to be broken by circumstance, showed a resilience and love that stirred something long dormant within him. The drive to William's estate was silent. The twins pressed together in the back seat, occasionally whispering to each other as the city landscape gave way to manicured suburbs and eventually the private road leading to William's mansion. When the car stopped before the imposing structure, The twins' exhaustion momentarily lifted, replaced by awe at the sheer size of the house illuminated by subtle landscape lighting. "You live here alone?" Emily asked as they stepped out of the car. William nodded, suddenly seeing his home through their eyes, grand, impressive, and utterly empty of what truly mattered. "Not tonight," he said quietly, leading them toward the massive front doors. "Tonight, you're here too." Morning light streamed through tall windows as Abigail and Emily cautiously explored their temporary home. The mansion's grandeur overwhelmed them, crystal chandeliers hanging from vaulted ceilings, artwork worth more than their entire life's possessions, and corridors leading to seemingly endless rooms. "Do you think he has a pool?" Emily whispered excitedly. "Probably 3, Abigail replied, running her hand along a marble banister. The girls had slept in a guest suite larger than their apartment, in beds so soft they'd felt like they were floating. Despite their concern for their mother, childish wonder temporarily overtook worry as they discovered each new corner of William's estate. William watched them from his study doorway, coffee in hand. He'd made several calls already, arranging for Jennifer's continued treatment, postponing meetings, and instructing his housekeeper to purchase necessities for the twins. He couldn't explain his actions even to himself. "The hospital called," William announced as the girls rounded a corner. "Your mother is stable. She's responding well to treatment." Both faces lit up with identical expressions of relief. "Can we see her today?" Abigail asked hopefully. "This afternoon," William promised. "Have you eaten?" The twins shook their heads. William led them to the kitchen, where his housekeeper, Mrs. Peterson, had prepared breakfast. The woman raised an eyebrow at the unlikely house guests but said nothing as she served plates piled with food. "Eat," William instructed, checking his phone as messages accumulated. The girls needed no encouragement, devouring the meal with barely concealed desperation. Later, as William answered emails, he heard a commotion outside his study. "You can't go in there," Mrs. Peterson was saying firmly. William opened the door to find Emily attempting to peer around the housekeeper into a room at the end of the hall, a room William kept permanently locked. "That door is always closed," Mrs. Peterson explained apologetically. "I tried to tell them." "It's fine," William interrupted, his voice tight. To the twins, he added, "That room is private. The rest of the house is yours to explore, but that room remains closed." "Understood?" Both girls nodded, chastened by his sudden coldness. That afternoon, William's driver took them to the hospital. Jennifer was awake, though weak, her face brightening at the sight of her daughters. "My girls," she whispered as they carefully hugged her. "I was so worried." "Mr. Reynolds is letting us stay at his house, Mom," Emily explained excitedly. "It's huge." Jennifer's eyes found William standing uncomfortably at the doorway. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "There's no need," William replied stiffly. The doctor arrived with updates explaining Jennifer's condition in simplified terms for the twins. "Your mom's kidneys weren't working properly. We're helping them filter her blood while they heal." "Will she get better?" Abigail asked, clutching her mother's hand. "With continued treatment, yes," the doctor confirmed, "but it will take time." On the drive back, the twins were quiet, processing their mother's condition. "Why are you helping us?" Abigail finally asked, breaking the silence. William stared out the window, watching the city pass. Why indeed? He'd spent years building walls around himself, focusing solely on his empire. Why risk pain by letting these strangers in? Sometimes people just need help, he answered eventually, avoiding the deeper truth. That night, after the twins were asleep, William stood before the locked door, key in hand. Inside was everything he'd tried to forget: photos, toys, memories preserved like insects in amber. His fingers tightened around the key, then released. Not tonight, perhaps not ever. Behind him, the house felt different, no longer just an empty monument to his success, but temporarily alive with the presence of children again. The sensation was both comforting and terrifying. A week passed, settling into an unexpected rhythm. Each morning, William found himself waking earlier than usual, listening for the sounds of life in his formerly silent home, the twins' footsteps, their whispered conversations. Even their occasional disagreements had become part of the mansion's new soundtrack. William's staff adapted with professional efficiency, though not without curiosity. Mrs. Peterson stocked the kitchen with child-friendly foods, while the groundskeeper found himself answering endless questions about the gardens from two identical shadows that followed him around. "Mr. Reynolds?" Abigail approached William as he worked in his home office. "Can we visit Mom today?" William checked his watch. "We'll go after lunch. How's the room working out for you both?" "It's awesome," Abigail replied, her eyes brightening. Emily found a chess set in the closet. "Do you play?" William's fingers stilled on his keyboard. "I used to." "Could you teach us sometime?" The girl's hopeful expression made declining impossible. "Perhaps," William answered, returning to his work. Abigail lingered a moment before retreating, leaving William alone with an unexpected surge of emotion. At the hospital, Jennifer's improvement was evident. Color had returned to her cheeks, and she sat up, embracing her daughters as they bounded into the room. "The doctors say I'm responding well to treatment," she told William, as the twins explored the small hospital room. "I don't know how I'll ever repay." "Don't," William interrupted. "Focus on recovery." Later, as the twins chatted animatedly with a nurse, Jennifer studied William more carefully. "You don't have children of your own?" she asked quietly. William's posture stiffened. "No," he answered. Then after a pause, "Not anymore." Jennifer's eyes widened slightly at the implication, but before she could respond, Emily called for her attention, breaking the moment. That evening, dinner at the mansion was interrupted by a crash from the living room. William and Mrs. Peterson rushed in to find Emily standing horrified before the shattered remains of an antique vase. "I'm sorry," the girl stammered, eyes wide with fear. "I was just looking. I didn't mean to." William surveyed the damage. The vase, a rare piece he'd acquired at auction years ago, lay in irreparable pieces. "Are you hurt?" he asked calmly. Emily shook her head, clearly expecting punishment. "Good," William said. "Mrs. Peterson, please clean this up." To Emily's astonishment, William simply turned and walked back toward the dining room. "Aren't you mad?" Emily asked, following cautiously. William paused. "It's just a thing," he said. "Things can be replaced." Later that night, unable to sleep, William wandered the darkened house. Passing the twins' room, he heard soft sobbing. He hesitated, then quietly opened the door. Abigail sat awake in bed, tears streaming down her face. Emily slept soundly in the adjacent bed. "What's wrong?" William asked, keeping his voice low. "Miss Mom," Abigail whispered. "What if she doesn't get better?" William sat carefully on the edge of the bed. "The doctors are very good. She's already improving." Abigail looked up, her tear-stained face vulnerable in the dim light. "Our dad died when we were 5. Mom said sometimes people just don't come back." The simple statement hit William with unexpected force. Without thinking, he reached out awkwardly, patting the girl's shoulder. "Your mother is coming back," he promised. "Try to sleep now." As he closed the door behind him, William felt something shift inside, a crack in the careful fortress he'd built around his heart, letting in both pain and something else he wasn't ready to name. 2 weeks into their stay, the mansion had transformed. Schoolbooks now littered the dining table, as William had arranged for temporary homeschooling. Children's jackets hung beside expensive coats in the foyer. The pristine silence had given way to lively chatter and occasional laughter. Today brought news they'd all been waiting for. Jennifer was being released for outpatient treatment. William's driver brought her directly from the hospital, the twins bouncing impatiently by the front door until they spotted the car approaching. "Mom!" they shouted in unison, rushing down the steps as Jennifer emerged, still thin but standing straight, color returned to her face. William watched from the doorway as the family embraced, feeling strangely like an outsider witnessing something precious. Jennifer looked up, catching his eye, and smiled with genuine warmth. Something in his chest tightened unexpectedly. "Welcome," he said simply as they approached. "This is overwhelming," Jennifer admitted, taking in the mansion's grandeur. "We can't possibly impose." "You're not imposing," William interrupted. "The doctor said you need rest and continued treatment. This is the most practical arrangement." Mrs. Peterson appeared, offering to show Jennifer to her room. The twins immediately volunteered as tour guides, eager to show their mother everything they'd discovered. That evening, for the first time, all four ate dinner together. The twins dominated the conversation, updating Jennifer on their temporary life, the gardens they had explored, the chess lessons William had reluctantly begun giving them, the planets William's telescope could see. "You've been teaching them chess?" Jennifer asked William during a rare pause. William nodded, uncomfortable with her scrutiny. "He's really good, Mom," Abigail added. "He says we're learning fast because we have good spatial—" She looked at William for help. "Spatial reasoning," William supplied. Jennifer smiled. "They've always been quick learners." Her expression turned serious. "But we need to discuss what happens next. The doctor says I'll need ongoing treatment for months, and I need to find work that can accommodate—" "One step at a time," William interrupted. "Your treatment schedule is arranged. Everything else can wait." Later, after the twins were asleep, William found Jennifer in the library, examining family photos displayed on a shelf. Carefully curated images of William's parents and business achievements, with conspicuous gaps. "Thank you," she said without turning. "Not just for the medical care, but for making my girls feel safe. They've had so little stability." William remained in the doorway. "They're remarkable children." "They mentioned a locked room," Jennifer said carefully. "They think it might be filled with treasure." William's posture stiffened. "Just storage," he lied. Jennifer turned, studying him with gentle perception. "I understand privacy, Mr. Reynolds. We all have parts of ourselves we keep locked away." The simple understanding in her voice nearly undid him. For years, colleagues and associates had tiptoed around his past, treating him like a ticking bomb. Jennifer's straightforward acknowledgement was disarming. "William," he said suddenly. "Please call me William." She nodded. "William, then." An awkward silence fell between them, filled with unasked questions. "I should rest," Jennifer finally said. "Good night, William." After she left, William poured himself a drink, contemplating how quickly these strangers had infiltrated his carefully constructed solitude. The most disturbing realization wasn't that he minded their presence, but that he was beginning to dread their eventual departure. Out of habit, his hand reached into his pocket where he still carried the twins' silver necklace. He examined it, under the lamp's glow, running his thumb over its worn edges, wondering how something so small could have triggered such significant disruption to his life. William sat alone in his office, quarterly reports forgotten on his desk. Outside, he could hear the twins laughing as they kicked a soccer ball across the lawn. The sound penetrated the thick windows, infiltrating the sanctuary he'd maintained for years. 3 weeks had passed since Jennifer's release from the hospital. Her strength returned gradually, but her medical team insisted on continued rest between treatments. The temporary arrangement showed no signs of ending soon, a fact that left William increasingly conflicted. His phone buzzed with a message from his executive assistant. "Board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Confirm attendance." William stared at the screen. He'd been working remotely, making occasional appearances at the office when necessary. His absence had sparked rumors, which his team managed efficiently. Yet the truth, that he, William Reynolds, ruthless business titan, was playing host to a struggling single mother and her twins, would be incomprehensible to his colleagues. "Confirmed," he typed, then set the phone aside. The office door opened slowly, and Emily peered in. "Mr. William, Mom said to tell you, dinner's ready." Jennifer had insisted on cooking whenever she felt strong enough to earn her keep, she'd explained, despite William's protests. Her simple home-cooked meals had become strangely meaningful, bringing them together around the dining table each evening. "I'll be right there," William replied. Emily hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" William nodded, gesturing for the girl to enter. "Why do you always keep that necklace in your pocket? The one we sold you." William's hand instinctively touched his jacket pocket, where the small pendant indeed rested. He hadn't realized the girl had noticed. "I'm not sure," he answered honestly. Emily approached, stopping respectfully before the desk. "It was our mom's. Our dad gave it to her before he died." William felt a stab of guilt. "I didn't know." "You should have it back." Emily shook her head. "We sold it fair. Mom says a deal is a deal." She studied William curiously. "Did you have kids? Is that why you have that locked room?" The directness of the question knocked the air from William's lungs. In the corporate world, no one dared mention his past so bluntly. "I did," he admitted, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. "A wife and twin daughters. What happened to them?" William should have shut down the conversation, changed the subject, maintained the walls he'd built. Instead, he heard himself answer, "There was an accident. I was told they died 5 years ago." Emily absorbed this with solemn understanding beyond her years. "That's why you helped us, isn't it? Because we reminded you of them." William looked away, uncomfortable with the girl's perception. "Perhaps. Mom says people come into our lives for a reason," Emily continued. "Maybe we came into yours to help you too." Before William could respond, Abigail appeared at the door. "Come on. Mom made lasagna." Emily smiled and followed her sister. At the doorway, she turned back. "You should come too, Mr. William. It's better when we're all together." Dinner that night was animated, the twins recounting their soccer game while Jennifer smiled at their enthusiasm. William observed quietly, struck by how the formal dining room, previously used only for rare business dinners, had transformed into a space of genuine warmth. "The girls tell me you have a board meeting tomorrow," Jennifer said as the twins cleared the dishes, insisting on helping despite Mrs. Peterson's presence. "Yes," William confirmed. "I should be back by evening." "We'll manage fine. It's good for you to return to normal life." But as William looked around the table, he realized with startling clarity that this improvised family dinner with people who had been strangers weeks ago felt more like normal life than anything he'd experienced in years. The realization terrified him. The board meeting dragged interminably. William found himself checking his watch repeatedly, his mind wandering to the mansion and its temporary residence. When his CFO asked about quarterly projections, William had to request the question be repeated, an unprecedented lapse in his legendary focus. "Everything all right, William?" his COO asked during a break, genuine concern in his voice. "Fine," William replied curtly. "Let's finish this." By the time he returned home, evening had fallen. The mansion was unusually quiet as he entered. Following the sound of hushed voices, he found Jennifer in the twins' room, sitting beside Abigail's bed. "What happened?" William asked, seeing the girl's flushed face. "Fever," Jennifer explained, worry etched in her features. "It came on suddenly this afternoon." Abigail managed a weak smile. "Hi, Mr. William." Emily sat cross-legged on her own bed, watching her sister anxiously. "She threw up twice," she reported solemnly. William approached, noting Abigail's glazed eyes and labored breathing. Without hesitation, he pulled out his phone and dialed his personal physician. "He'll be here in 20 minutes, William announced after a brief conversation. Jennifer looked up, startled. "A house call? That's not necessary?" "It is," William interrupted. "We don't know if this is related to your condition or something contagious. Better to be cautious." The doctor confirmed it was just a common virus, prescribing rest and fluids. Yet even after this reassurance, William found himself returning to check on Abigail throughout the night, an inexplicable anxiety gripping him each time he walked away. During one such visit, he found Jennifer asleep in the chair beside Abigail's bed, her hand still resting on her daughter's forehead. In sleep, the strain of recent months showed plainly on her face. William quietly draped a blanket over her shoulders, then stood watching both mother and child, an unfamiliar ache spreading through his chest. The next morning, Abigail's fever had broken. William canceled his meetings again, working from home while periodically checking on the girl's recovery. By afternoon, Abigail was sitting up sipping ginger ale while Emily entertained her with exaggerated stories. "You didn't have to stay home," Jennifer said, finding William in his study later. "We could have managed." William looked up from his laptop. "I wanted to be sure she was recovering." Jennifer studied him with that perceptive gaze that always made him feel transparent. "You care about them." It wasn't a question. William closed his laptop, struggling with how to respond. "The girls have started calling you Mr. William instead of Mr. Reynolds," she continued. "They've become attached to you. And that concerns you?" William surmised. Jennifer sighed, sitting in the chair opposite his desk. "We can't stay here forever, William. Eventually, I'll be well enough to work again, to provide for my daughters properly, and then—" She left the sentence unfinished, but its conclusion hung heavily in the air. Then they would leave, return to their own life. This temporary intersection would end. "My treatments are working better than expected," Jennifer continued softly. "The doctor says I might be ready for reduced sessions within a month. I've started looking at apartments we can afford." William felt something cold settle in his stomach. "There's no rush," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "There is," Jennifer countered gently. "The longer we stay, the harder it will be for all of us when we leave." William had no response. In business, he never hesitated, never showed uncertainty. But this wasn't business. This was something he'd deliberately avoided for years. Emotional entanglement. The risk of caring too deeply. "You've given us so much already," Jennifer said, rising to leave. "We can't take advantage of your generosity forever." As she reached the door, William finally spoke. "And if I asked you to stay?" The question surprised them both. Jennifer turned, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. "Why would you?" she asked softly. William had no answer, at least none he was ready to voice aloud. That night, William stood before the locked door, key trembling slightly in his hand. For 5 years, he'd preserved this room exactly as it had been the day of the accident, his twins' room frozen in time like a memorial. His conversation with Jennifer echoed in his mind. "And if I asked you to stay?" The words had escaped before he could stop them, revealing more than he'd intended. With a deep breath, William inserted the key. The lock turned with a soft click that seemed to reverberate through the silent hallway. He pushed the door open slowly, dust particles dancing in the beam of light from the corridor. Everything remained as he'd left it. The pink walls covered with butterfly decals, the bookshelf filled with fairy tales, the twin beds with their matching princess comforters that Mrs. Peterson had been instructed never to touch. On the bedside table, a framed photo of identical baby girls with William and his wife Elizabeth, all smiling on a beach vacation, their last together. William stepped inside, overwhelmed by memories. He picked up a silver necklace from the jewelry box displayed on a shelf, identical to the one the twins had sold him. Elizabeth had given matching necklaces to their daughters for their 2nd birthday. "Mr. William?" He turned sharply. Emily stood in the doorway, eyes wide with curiosity and uncertainty. "You shouldn't be here," William said, his voice hoarse. "I'm sorry," Emily whispered. "I heard the door open." Her gaze traveled around the room, understanding dawning on her young face. "This was your daughter's room." William nodded, unable to speak. "What were their names?" "Sophia and Charlotte," William managed. "They would be 10 now, your age." Emily cautiously entered the room, approaching the photo on the nightstand. "You all look happy." "We were," William replied softly. Emily studied the picture, then looked up at William. "My mom says Dad watches over us from heaven. Maybe Sophia and Charlotte watch over you too." The simple statement, delivered with a child's certainty, cracked something inside William. He sat heavily on the edge of one of the small beds, emotions he'd suppressed for years finally breaking through. "I miss them," William admitted, the words barely audible. "Every day." "We miss our dad too," Emily said, sitting beside him. "Mom says it's okay to be sad sometimes, but we shouldn't forget to be happy too." From the doorway came a small gasp. Abigail stood there, still pale from her illness, but eyes wide at the forbidden room. Behind her, Jennifer appeared, her expression softening as she took in the scene. "Girls, come away," she said gently. "This is private." "It's all right," William found himself saying. "They can come in." Abigail approached cautiously, examining the room with quiet reverence. "Cool butterfly lamps," she observed, pointing to the fairy-shaped nightlight. Charlotte was afraid of the dark, William explained, surprising himself with how easily the words came now. "We bought these on their 3rd birthday." Jennifer remained in the doorway, watching as William began showing the twins his daughter's favorite books and toys. Each object came with a story, memories William had locked away now flowing freely. The pain was still there, but somehow sharing it made it bearable. Later, after the twins had gone to bed, Jennifer found William still in the girls' room, sitting quietly. "I'm sorry they intruded," she said. "Don't be," William replied. "It was time to open this door." Jennifer leaned against the doorframe. "They seem like they were beautiful little girls. They must have been wonderful." "They were." William looked up at her. "The accident, it wasn't an accident. My stepmother, Victoria, arranged it all." "What?" Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. "I only learned the truth 2 years ago. Victoria wanted control of the company after my father died. Elizabeth and the girls were in her way." His voice grew hard. "She hired someone to tamper with their car. I was supposed to be with them that day, but a last-minute meeting kept me at the office." Jennifer crossed the room and sat beside him. "That's monstrous. I had her arrested, of course. She's serving life in prison now." William stared at his hands. "But it didn't bring them back. Nothing could." "That's why you isolated yourself," Jennifer said softly. "You're punishing yourself for surviving." The simple truth of her assessment left him speechless. "Survivor's guilt is a terrible burden," she continued quietly, "but living half a life doesn't honor their memory." William looked into her compassionate eyes and felt, for the first time in years, like someone truly saw him. Not the successful CEO, but the broken man beneath the perfect facade. "I don't know how to stop," he confessed. Jennifer placed her hand over his. "Maybe you've already started." Spring arrived, bringing transformation to both the estate grounds and its inhabitants. The garden William had maintained but rarely enjoyed now became a sanctuary where the twins explored daily. Jennifer's health improved steadily, her face regaining its natural glow, her strength returning with each passing week. Most remarkably transformed, however, was William himself. The change happened gradually, so subtly that an outsider might not notice, but Jennifer observed how his rigid posture softened when the girls entered a room, how genuine smiles occasionally replaced his customary stern expression. One sunny Saturday, William surprised everyone by canceling his usual weekend work session and suggesting they all visit the city's Natural History Museum. "Really?" Abigail exclaimed, nearly dropping her cereal spoon. "The dinosaur exhibit just opened," William said, casually, as if family outings were commonplace for him. "Unless you'd prefer something else." "Dinosaurs are perfect," Emily confirmed enthusiastically. Jennifer watched this exchange with quiet amazement. "Are you sure, William? You usually work Saturdays." "Work can wait," he replied, their eyes meeting briefly in shared understanding of how significant this statement was for a man who had built his life around his company. The museum trip marked a turning point. For the first time, they ventured out together beyond medical appointments, a visible unit that drew curious glances from museum staff who recognized the famous CEO, accompanied by a woman and identical girls. William, normally hyper-aware of public perception, seemed indifferent to the attention. "Look, Mr. William," Abigail called, pointing excitedly at a massive T-Rex skeleton. "This one's even bigger than the model in your library," William found, himself caught up in their enthusiasm, answering endless questions about prehistoric creatures with information gleaned from books he'd read to his daughters years ago. When Emily took his hand to drag him toward the next exhibit, William didn't pull away, an instinctive acceptance of physical connection that would have been unthinkable months earlier. Watching from a bench while the three examined a fossil display, Jennifer felt a complicated mixture of emotions. William had changed from intimidating benefactor to something else entirely, a man who genuinely cared for her daughters, who had opened himself to connection despite his painful past. The most troubling realization wasn't that she was grateful, but that she was growing attached in ways that went beyond gratitude. "Ice cream?" William suggested as they exited the museum, noticing a vendor across the street. The twins didn't need to be asked twice. Racing ahead, Jennifer and William followed at a slower pace. "Thank you for today," she said. "I haven't seen them this excited in a long time." "I enjoyed it too," William admitted. "More than I expected." "You're good with them," Jennifer observed. "Patient. Not many men would be." William watched the twins comparing ice cream flavors at the counter. "They make it easy. They're remarkable children." "You've given them something invaluable," Jennifer said softly. "Stability, security, a male presence they can trust." William turned to her, his expression serious. "Jennifer, about what you said. Last week looking for an apartment." "William," she interrupted gently, "we can't stay in your world forever. You've already done more than anyone could expect. What if I want you to stay?" The words hung between them, weighted with implications neither was ready to fully address. Before Jennifer could respond, the twins returned, proudly displaying elaborate ice cream concoctions. "Mr. William, can we go to the planetarium next weekend?" Emily asked eagerly. "Perhaps," William replied, glancing at Jennifer. "We'll see." That evening, as the twins recounted their museum adventures to Mrs. Peterson, William found Jennifer in the girls' room. She stood by the bookshelf, examining, a butterfly mobile hanging from the ceiling. "I used to imagine leaving was the right thing," she said without turning. "For you, for us. A clean break before everyone gets too attached." She finally faced him. "But I'm beginning to think that might no longer be possible." William stepped into the room, the space no longer filled with just pain and memory but something new, possibility. "Then don't leave," he said simply. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as Jennifer prepared breakfast, moving with an ease that reflected her improving health. The aroma of coffee and pancakes filled the air, creating a sense of domestic tranquility that had once been unimaginable in William's austere home. "Need help?" William asked, entering the kitchen in casual weekend attire rather than his usual business suit. Jennifer smiled. "You can set the table. The girls should be down any minute." They worked together in comfortable silence, the routine now familiar after 2 months of cohabitation. When William's hand accidentally brushed against hers while reaching for plates, neither pulled away immediately, a subtle acknowledgement of the growing connection between them. "Dr. Levine says I can reduce my treatments to once weekly," Jennifer mentioned, flipping a pancake. "My kidney function has stabilized beyond their expectations." William paused. "That's wonderful news." "It is," she agreed, though her tone carried a hint of uncertainty. "It also means I need to think seriously about work. I can't be financially dependent forever." Before William could respond, thundering footsteps announced the twins' arrival. They burst into the kitchen, already dressed for their Saturday softball practice, another new addition to the household routine. "Mom, Mr. William," Abigail exclaimed. "Coach said I might pitch today." "And I'm playing first base," Emily added, proudly. Breakfast conversations centered on softball strategy and team standings, the earlier tension momentarily set aside. William, who had never attended a sporting event that wasn't a corporate sponsorship opportunity, found himself genuinely invested in the twins' athletic progress. At the local field, William and Jennifer sat together on aluminum bleachers, watching the twins warm up with their teammates. Several parents nodded respectfully toward William, though none approached. His reputation for privacy preceded him. "They've grown," Jennifer observed. "Their clothes from February barely fit now." "Children do that," William replied with a small smile. "Grow when you least expect it." Jennifer turned to study his profile. "Not just physically. They're happier, more confident. That's because of you." William shook his head. "They're resilient, and they have you. But now they have you, too," she said softly. "They talk about you constantly. Mr. William showed us how to use the telescope. Mr. William explained how airplanes fly. Mr. William promised to teach us chess openings." William watched as Abigail took position on the pitcher's mound, her small face concentrated with determination. "Never expected this," William admitted. "Any of it." "Neither did I," Jennifer replied. "When you appeared at our door that day, I thought you were just a wealthy man assuaging his conscience with charity. And now?" "Now I know better." Their eyes met, communicating more than words could express. The moment was interrupted by cheers as Abigail struck out her first batter. William found himself on his feet, applauding more enthusiastically than he had for any business achievement. Later that evening, after the twins had gone to bed, William and Jennifer sat on the terrace, the spring air mild and fragrant with blooming flowers. Between them rested the real estate listings Jennifer had been discreetly researching. "These are all too far from your treatments," William observed, examining the circled apartments. "They're what I can afford," Jennifer replied pragmatically. "I've applied for administrative positions that would accommodate my medical schedule." William set the papers aside. "There's another option." "William, hear me out," he interrupted gently. "This house has 7 bedrooms. The girls are thriving in their school. Your medical team is nearby." He paused, gathering courage. "Stay. Not as temporary guests, but permanently." Jennifer looked away, her profile gilded by moonlight. "People would talk. They'd say I manipulated you, that the girls and I are taking advantage." "Let them talk," William said with sudden fierceness. "I've spent 5 years making decisions based on what others might think, on maintaining perfect control. I'm tired of it." "What exactly are you proposing?" Jennifer asked, her voice barely above a whisper. William reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm proposing we stop pretending this is temporary, that we acknowledge whatever this is between us deserves a chance." He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not asking for immediate answers. Just don't leave yet." Jennifer's eyes glistened in the dim light. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Not of you, but of hoping again, of letting the girls hope." "I'm afraid too," William confessed. "But for the first time in years, I'm more afraid of losing something than of having it." As the night deepened around them, neither moved to break the connection of their intertwined hands, a silent agreement to face their fears together. Summer arrived in full splendor, transforming the estate's formal gardens into a playground, where the twins spent endless hours exploring, building forts, and occasionally helping the amused groundskeeper with simple tasks. The mansion itself had undergone a more subtle transformation. Children's artwork now adorned the refrigerator, colorful sneakers cluttered the entryway, and laughter echoed through previously silent corridors. 3 months had passed since William's proposition on the terrace. Jennifer had neither accepted nor rejected his offer of permanence, but they had fallen into a comfortable rhythm that felt increasingly like family life. "Mom, Mr. William, look what we found," Emily called one Saturday morning, bursting into the breakfast room where William and Jennifer were quietly enjoying coffee. Both girls appeared muddy and triumphant, holding a small turtle between them. "He was by the pond," Abigail explained excitedly. "Can we keep him? Please." William glanced at Jennifer, who raised an eyebrow in silent communication, their newfound ability to converse without words, one of many developments in their evolving relationship. "A turtle requires proper care," William replied thoughtfully. "Perhaps we should research what he needs first. We could build him a habitat, Emily suggested. Mr. William, you said you had building supplies in the garage, right? I did, William confirmed, surprising himself with how naturally he now included the girls in his plans and possessions. Jennifer watched this exchange with amusement. You realize this means we'll be constructing a turtle paradise this afternoon. I've negotiated billion-dollar contracts, William replied dryly. I suspect I can handle turtle architecture. Their laughter mingled easily, a sound that had become increasingly common. The day unfolded in domestic harmony, researching turtle, habitats online, gathering supplies and working together in the garden to create a suitable home for the reptilian visitor. William, who once delegated every task to staff, found himself kneeling in dirt, patiently explaining to the twins how to create proper drainage for their habitat. Mrs. Peterson, bringing lemonade to the garden, paused to observe her employer, the formidable CEO now sporting dirt-smudged khakis and a relaxed smile as he worked alongside the girls. The housekeeper exchanged a knowing glance with Jennifer, both women silently acknowledging the transformation. That evening, after tucking the twins into bed, another ritual William had gradually joined, he and Jennifer settled in the library, with glasses of wine. The turtle habitat is quite impressive, Jennifer commented, curling comfortably into a corner of the sofa. You've missed your calling as an environmental engineer. William smiled, his posture more relaxed than she'd ever seen in their early days. The board would be shocked to see me covered in mud and pond water. Your company has been patient with your reduced schedule, Jennifer observed. The benefits of being the founder, William replied, though my executive team has handled things admirably in my partial absence. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the ticking of the antique clock and the distant sounds of the house settling. I received a job offer today, Jennifer said finally. Administrative director at a nonprofit. The salary is modest but adequate, and they're willing to accommodate my treatment schedule. William set down his wine glass carefully. Congratulations, he said, his tone measured. When would you start? I haven't accepted yet, Jennifer replied, watching his expression. It would mean decisions about other matters. The unspoken question hung between them. Would accepting the job mean leaving the estate, ending this careful dance they'd been performing? Jennifer, William began softly, we've lived in this beautiful limbo for months now. The girls consider this home. They consider you. He hesitated. Family, Jennifer supplied, her voice carrying a hint of vulnerability rarely revealed. William nodded. They've grown to love you and I. He stopped suddenly, uncertain. Jennifer moved closer on the sofa, taking his hand. And you? William met her gaze directly. I've grown to love the woman who cooks in my kitchen, who reads to my groundskeepers, children when they visit, who somehow made this empty house feel like a home again. Jennifer's thumb traced circles on his palm. I never expected to feel this way again, she admitted. After losing David, I convinced myself it was safer to focus solely on the girls. And now? William prompted gently. Now I find myself terrified by how much we have to lose, Jennifer confessed. The girls adore you and I... She took a deep breath. I've fallen in love with you, William. But I'm afraid of building something on such an uneven foundation. Your world and mine, they're so different. William leaned forward until their foreheads touched. Then let's build a new world, he whispered. One that belongs to all of us. Jennifer closed her eyes, her free hand coming up to rest against his cheek. Ask me properly, she said softly. Not as your charity case, not as someone you're rescuing. Ask me as a woman you want to build a life with. William sat in his office the following morning, staring at the small velvet box on his desk. The antique ring inside, his grandmother's, had been in a safe deposit box for years. He'd retrieved it yesterday after his conversation with Jennifer, his mind racing with possibilities. Ask me properly, she had said. The words echoed in his mind, both thrilling and terrifying. William Reynolds, who made multi-million-dollar decisions daily without hesitation, found himself paralyzed by uncertainty. A gentle knock interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. William?" Abigail peered around the door. "Mom said to tell you lunch is ready." "I'll be right there," William replied, quickly slipping the ring box into his desk drawer. Abigail lingered. "Are you okay? You look worried." William managed a smile. "Just thinking about some important decisions." "About us staying?" Abigail asked with startling directness. William's breath caught. "What do you think about that?" "Emily and I want to stay forever," she said solemnly. "Mom's happier here and you're happier with us, we can tell." "You're very perceptive," William observed. The girl shrugged. "Twins notice things." She hesitated, then added, "Mom loves you, you know." She smiles. Different when you're around. Before William could respond, Abigail disappeared down the hallway, leaving him stunned by the simple wisdom of a 10-year-old. At lunch, William found himself studying Jennifer across the table as she laughed at something Emily said. She caught his gaze and smiled, that special smile Abigail had mentioned, sending warmth spreading through his chest. "I thought we might visit the lake this afternoon," William suggested as they finished eating. "The weather's perfect for it." The twins cheered their approval. William's estate included a small private lake complete with a boathouse and dock, which had become a favorite spot during the summer heat. Hours later, as the sun began its descent, Jennifer and William sat on the dock watching the twins splash in the shallows. A comfortable silence stretched between them, broken only by the girls' laughter and the occasional call of birds. "I spoke with the non-profit director this morning," Jennifer said finally. "I asked for a few more days to consider their offer." William nodded, his fingers unconsciously touching the ring box in his pocket. "What's holding you back?" Jennifer turned to face him fully. "You know exactly what's holding me back, William." Her expression softened. "Whatever you're wrestling with, just say it." William took a deep breath. "When I bought that necklace from the girls, I never imagined where it would lead. I was empty, functioning but not living." He gazed out at the twins, then back to Jennifer. "And then suddenly my house was full of noise and chaos and life again." "It wasn't just charity, was it?" Jennifer asked quietly. "Even at the beginning." William shook his head. "I told myself it was, that I was just helping because I could. But from that first day, seeing those twin girls trying so desperately to save their mother," he met her eyes. "They reminded me of Sophia and Charlotte, but they also reminded me of what it meant to care deeply about something beyond myself." Jennifer reached for his hand. "And now? Now I can't imagine this house without you in it. Without the girls running through the halls. Without your laugh in the kitchen." He squeezed her hand. "Without the family we've somehow become." The twins, splashing, grew more distant as they chased each other along the shoreline, giving the adults a moment of privacy. "I used to think I didn't deserve happiness," William continued. "That surviving when Elizabeth and the girls didn't was some cosmic punishment." "And now?" Jennifer prompted again. "Now I think maybe they would want this for me. For us." William reached into his pocket and withdrew the ring box. "I've been carrying this around all day, trying to find the perfect moment, the perfect words." Jennifer's eyes widened as he opened the box, revealing a vintage emerald surrounded by diamonds. "I'm not offering security or stability or financial support," William said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I'm offering partnership, family, a life together that honors both our pasts, but isn't defined by them." He took her hand. "Jennifer Miller, will you and your remarkable daughters make this house a home permanently? Will you marry me?" Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. For a moment that stretched eternally, she simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, we'll stay. Yes, I'll marry you." William slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her close. Their kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with the promise of shared futures and healing hearts. They broke apart at the sound of approaching footsteps. The twins ran toward them, dripping wet and curious. "What's happening?" Emily asked, noticing her mother's tears and William's uncharacteristically emotional expression. Jennifer extended her hand, showing them the ring. "William has asked us to stay permanently, as a family." The girls stared at the ring, then at the adults, processing this information. "Does that mean you're getting married?" Abigail asked cautiously. William nodded. "If that's all right with you both." The twins exchanged one of their silent communications, then broke into identical grins. "Does this mean we can call you Dad?" Emily asked boldly. The question hit William with unexpected force. He had been prepared for hesitation, for a gradual transition. Instead, these remarkable girls offered immediate acceptance, a gift he never thought he'd receive again. "I would be honored," William said, his voice rough with emotion. "But only when you're ready." The twins launched themselves forward, wrapping their arms around both adults in an enthusiastic group hug that nearly toppled everyone into the lake. Laughter and tears mingled as the newly defined family held each other close, the setting sun casting them in golden light. Later that night, as the twins slept and Jennifer admired her ring in the moonlight streaming through their bedroom window, William found himself thinking of his daughters. For the first time, the memory brought bittersweet joy rather than crushing pain, the sense that they would approve of the family their father had found. In his pocket, William still carried the twins' silver necklace, now a talisman of unexpected beginnings rather than painful endings. William Reynolds, once known only for his business acumen and reclusive nature, now found himself the subject of different kinds of whispers as he, Jennifer, and the twins entered the charity gala. 6 months had passed since his proposal by the lake. The announcement of their engagement had created ripples throughout Boston's elite circles. "William," Richard Thornton, chairman of William's board, approached. "We were beginning to think you'd become entirely domestic these days." William guided Jennifer forward, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back. "Richard, I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Jennifer Miller." Jennifer, elegant in a midnight blue gown that complemented the emerald on her finger, extended her hand with quiet confidence. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Thornton. William speaks highly of your business partnership." Richard's expression betrayed momentary surprise before he recovered his polished charm. "The pleasure is mine. William has been different these past months, happier. Now I understand why." As they moved through the crowded ballroom, William introduced Jennifer to colleagues and business associates. Some responded with genuine warmth, others with barely concealed curiosity about the woman who had captured the heart of Boston's most eligible widower. "They're wondering what my angle is," Jennifer murmured as they stepped onto the dance floor. "The single mother who somehow ensnared the billionaire." William drew her closer, moving smoothly to the orchestra's waltz. "Let them wonder. We know the truth." Jennifer smiled up at him. "Which is?" "That I'm the fortunate one," William replied, his voice low and sincere. "That somehow I was given a second chance at happiness I never thought I deserved." Later that evening, as they drove home, Jennifer rested her head against William's shoulder. "The girls will want a full report. Abigail was convinced you'd be eating from golden plates." William chuckled. "Wait until they hear about the chocolate fountain." They found Mrs. Peterson in the living room reading to the twins who had stubbornly refused to sleep until their parents returned. "Mom! Dad!" Abigail exclaimed, the term dad now comfortably established in their daily lexicon. How was the fancy party? William still felt a surge of emotion each time the girls called him Dad, a title he thought he'd never hear again. "Less exciting than you'd imagine," he replied, loosening his tie. "Mostly grown-ups talking about boring things." "Did you dance?" Emily asked, scrambling to make room on the sofa for them. Jennifer kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. "We did. Your future dad is surprisingly good at it." The twins looked impressed. "Can you teach us?" Abigail asked. "For when we go to fancy parties too." "Of course," William promised, settling beside them, though those might be a few years away yet. Mrs. Peterson excused herself, smiling at the family tableau. so different from the solitary evenings that had once defined this household. "I got an A on my science project," Abigail announced proudly. "Mrs. Stevenson said my ecosystem model was exceptional." "And I got picked for the school play," Emily added, not to be outdone. Jennifer and William exchanged glances of parental pride. These ordinary achievements, homework, school activities, small triumphs, and occasional failures, had become the precious fabric of their shared life. Later, after the twins had finally been persuaded to bed, William and Jennifer stood in the doorway of his daughter's room, now transformed into a space where photographs of both their past and present families shared space. William had suggested converting it to a proper bedroom for one of the twins, but Jennifer had insisted otherwise. "They're part of our family story too," she'd said. "We don't erase the past. We build on it." Now, as wedding plans progressed and their lives intertwined more completely, William realized how right she had been. The room had transformed from a shrine to grief into a bridge between past and future, much like William himself. "3 weeks until the wedding," Jennifer said softly, leaning against him. "Having second thoughts?" William pulled her close. "Only about letting the twins be in charge of the rings," she replied with a smile. "I'm envisioning a dramatic chase. Scene mid-ceremony," William laughed. "They promised to be on their best behavior, and Mrs. Peterson threatened to withhold dessert for a month if they misbehave." "Powerful incentive," Jennifer agreed, turning off the light as they left the room. "Though I wouldn't care if the entire ceremony descended into chaos, as long as, at the end of it, you're my husband and we're officially a family." William kissed her softly. "We already are, Jennifer. The wedding just makes it official." The garden radiated with springtime glory. Roses climbed trellises, cherry blossoms carpeted pathways, and sunlight dappled the assembled guests. 1 year to the day since William's proposal, family and close friends gathered to witness not a wedding but a renewal of vows. Jennifer, radiant in ivory lace, stood opposite William beneath an arch of flowers. Between them stood Abigail and Emily, beautiful in matching dresses, eyes bright with joy as they held the velvet cushions bearing rings. 1 year ago, the officiant began. These 4 souls officially became a family. Today, they celebrate that journey and renew their promises. William gazed at Jennifer, still amazed by the miracle of her presence in his life. "When I met 2 determined girls selling a silver necklace, I never imagined they would lead me back to life," he said, voice steady with certainty. "You and the girls healed wounds I thought permanent. You turned my house back into a home." Jennifer squeezed his hands. "You saved us in every way a family can be saved. But more importantly, you loved us not out of obligation, but with your whole heart." The twins presented the rings with perfect solemnity. As William slipped the band onto Jennifer's finger, he noted the engraving inside. "Second chances." Life had come full circle. What began with a silver necklace had transformed into something beautiful and enduring. Proof that even the most wounded hearts could find healing through love's unexpected pathways.